Run, party, repeat. Welcome to the East Coast Adventures Dirt and Vert Podcast, where we talk all things running, racing, and training to help you get ready for your next big adventure.
Learn from our successes and our failures, and have fun at the same time. Join us right here every week with inspiring guests who share their captivating tales from the trails. And remember, nobody cares.
Run faster. All right, welcome back to the Dirt and Vert Podcast. I'm David.
And I'm Matt.
And we have a guest with us today who I got the pleasure of not running with, but I at least heard his name in Pinhoti 100, Mike Basuini. So Mike had a fantastic run at Pinhoti, great performance. He ended up finishing second overall, roughly about 18 hours. So great performance there, Mike. But, obviously we want to learn a lot about you. So if you don't care, tell us a little bit about who you are and how you got into running.
Yeah. So I'm Mike. I'm originally from California. Kind of grew up camping, liking the outdoors. That was my favorite thing as a child, was getting outside, going hiking, and kind of always seemed to be able to outlast my family on some of those hikes. And they thought the hills were real long, and I never really noticed. So kind of just always been excited to go outside and do things. My first introduction into outdoor sport, though, was mountain biking through my uncle. And so for some reason, I just really liked, it was really hard for me at that time, and I just really liked the challenge of it. And so somehow in my mind, I connected the dots of mountain biking and running, and already knew in fifth grade, I was like, I'm going to go join the cross-country team in middle school. So I sought out a middle school that had a cross-country team, and kind of the rest is history after that, and just slowly developing and getting better at it over time. I definitely wasn't the best runner at first, and year after year just kind of got a little better, made varsity, and then decided to run in college, and here I am still running. So just slowly over time.
Where'd you run at in college?
A small school out in California called William Jessup University. It's in Rockland, California, which is near Auburn. So that's kind of how I got my first taste of trail running out there. My coach there hadn't done Western States, and so I kind of got to run some of the trails out there for training too. So that's kind of how it introduced me to trail running.
Well, that's kind of cool to have a coach that's actually an ultra runner.
Yeah, very cool.
So was it a big change going from high school to college, like as far as training volume and stuff like that?
It was, and I'm not going to say I went about it the best way either. There's so many, being a college coach now, man, I look back, I'm like, gosh, I went at it way too hard, tried to do way too much, and could have been more consistent. So I'd say it is a big change, but it doesn't have to be. Now when I coach, I take kids out of high school, and I'm really trying to be smart, especially those first 2 years before we start throwing a bunch of volume at them and stuff. So it is a big change, kind of in theory, but also it doesn't have to be for best results.
Well, and that's something that just comes with time and obviously learning. But so you started mountain biking, I guess, at a very young age then, if you joined the cross country and track at like middle school?
Yeah, I think it was like fourth, fifth grade. My uncle was getting me out there, and I have no idea how far we were going. I know I can think the loops in my head, but it wasn't anything super crazy. But for me, it was a good Saturday that wore me out. Just like we feel after a long run, we go run 20 miles on Saturday and we're done for the rest of the day on the couch. It was those kind of days. So
that's pretty. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Like to have someone in your family take you out when you're that young.
Yeah.
And, kind of set you on that trajectory of
He's
where
still
you're at.
going. I get to follow him on Strava now. We didn't have Strava then, but now I get to see what he's doing on Strava all the time.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. Is he still in California?
He is in Utah now.
Utah.
Yeah.
Wow. He's got good trails over there.
Yeah,
sure.
St. George. So he's got lots of options.
So how did you end up where are you at now? Chattanooga?
I am in Chattanooga.
Yeah. So what was our transition then from California, from cross country and track, to Mike, who is now in Chattanooga and almost, and winning 100 winning endurance races? How was that transition? How did you end up here?
Yeah. So out of grew up in the Bay Area. So this is San Jose, California, kind of near San Francisco, pretty much one of the most expensive places to live in the country. And by the time I graduated college, knew I wasn't really interested in like a typical tech job of what it would take to be able to even afford to live there. So kind of knew I might have to move somewhere at some point or just keep living with my parents indefinitely. And so I took a summer job in Greensboro, North Carolina at a bike shop, and had a connection over there of a friend just to like, I'm just going to try something different for the summer. Kind of thought it would not be a long-term thing. And then ended up, at that time, knew I wanted to get into coaching, college coaching specifically. So I was looking at, figuring that out, and it got a foot in the door at Tennessee Wesleyan. They had an internship where I got $800 a month. I got to live in the dorm, got $3 meals, and got to run as much as I wanted. So it was kind of just like a perfect little way to get my foot in the door coaching, get to kind of hang out with a bunch of college kids, and run a bunch too. So super fun. And then that's kind of when I learned all about the trails in that area where you guys are. So got to run all up in there. So it was fun.
So what year was that when you started coaching, doing the internship and coaching at Tennessee Wesleyan?
That would have been fall 2017.
Okay. And is that when you moved here, basically?
Yep. Yeah, pretty much. And then I was in Athens all the way up until about a year ago when I moved in with Leah, and kind of some of that time, like half living here, half living there, just figure it all out. So now I just commute there almost every day.
Yeah. I mean, it's not that far of a drive. It's not far at all. And, the good thing in Chattanooga is you got all kinds of running trails beside you there too. So,
yeah, seriously. I would end up coming down here to run often anyway. So didn't add that much drive. Even there, if I'm in Athens, one thing I loved about Athens is like an hour any direction, you just have something really cool somewhere. So I would drive an hour often to go for a run anyway. So not too much.
I think we all do. I mean, an hour or 2 hour commute to go run in the woods is not a terrible thing if you're going to go spend 3 or 4 hours in the woods. May not be worth it for a 30-minute run, but if you got your long run, it's definitely worth it.
Yeah.
So the internship, how long did you do that?
So, I mean, it kind of slowly evolved. So I was probably intern for about 2 years. And then we were able to create a full-time assistant position where I actually had like a salary and benefits. And I did that for about 2 years. Then the head coach retired, and I took over as the head coach. So I ended up just kind of sticking it out there. Wasn't the plan originally. I was like, I'll do this internship, have a year of experience under my belt. So when I apply to other schools back on the West Coast or whatever, I'll have some resume and experience under me. And then ended up loving Tennessee and trail running here and all of that. So stuck with it and still there.
Well, it worked out exactly how it was supposed to then. That's pretty great. And I mean,
I got my wife now, and then I got like this just incredible community of people in Chattanooga, all around my age. A lot of 30-year-old men and women who just love crushing trails. So we meet up all the time and don't just run, and we just hang out too. So it's really cool.
Yeah.
Well, and another cool thing too, though, is as much as you love running and you love the sport, now you're coaching. So that's also forcing you to even learn. I'm sure just all the time, you're just constantly learning things, trying to help your athletes, which in turn is helping you, and what is, so just a quick question, you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but where you're at now with things you've learned since your internship and where you're at now with coaching, how would you compare that to the coaching you were getting when you were in high school and college? Do you think it's changed that much with what we've learned and the things available now?
Some things, yeah, some things no. There's for sure some newer stuff. And I mean, there's a lot of buzzwords, right? Like you hear zone 2 a lot. You hear double threshold, doing these workouts. And so there's these things that we talk about that seem different, but then coaches had different ways of doing them. And in a lot of ways, kind of one of the theories is that the research is just catching up to what coaches have already been doing. So we have a lot of things figured out how to do it. We don't know why it works, down to the cellular level and the numbers, but now we're kind of being able to research that and see, and then kind of narrow in more of how much we have to do. So I think something that I've really picked up under the head coach. Sam Roberts was the head coach at Tennessee Wesleyan. He's a legendary sprint coach, so really good with the sprinters. And one of his big things is finding the point of diminishing return. So like, how much do we need to do before we're like doing more than we need to, that it's too risky or hurting us more than it needs to? And that's kind of a big theory in sprinting. So I think we're kind of narrowing more in on that point of like, we know doing this helps us. We don't know how much, but now we can kind of have a better gauge of that versus 10 years ago, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say that's kind of hard to keep up with per athlete too, isn't it? I mean,
Sure, yeah.
it's a lot to. How many athletes do you have at Tennessee West?
Total, so I'm head over the whole track team, so that's all the event groups. And we have about 55 men and women. So not all of those are distance. There's a few throwers in there, jumpers and sprinters too. But
Pretty cool. That's a lot. That's a lot to keep
people.
up with.
yeah, knuckleheads too, of course.
So do you coach Monday through Friday? Do you do anything on the weekends as well, or just Monday through Friday?
Weekends, if it's practice, they'll do something on their own. But sometimes we have meets. So a lot of track meets are on Saturdays and sometimes cross country meets. So it just depends. But yeah, it can pretty quickly become like a 7-day work week and during the busy season. But then during the off season, me and Leah go out to Colorado for the summer because I can just do everything I have to remotely during that time. So we can
that's
kind of
awesome.
get a balance of busy season and then mountain running season or racing season or whatever.
Oh, that's great, man. That's the good life right there.
Yeah.
So, we're talking 2017. You are doing an internship, and then I also see that in, 2017, you do your first 50K.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess that was before you started, because
Yeah.
your 50K was in California. Did you do how did you get to the 50K? Like, where did that come from?
Man, good question. So it feels long ago now. I mean, coming out of college, I knew I wanted to do trail running and ultras, and so I guess I knew 50K was that first step. And I was trying to seek out competition. So that was that year that 50K was the USATF 50K champs. And so I just kind of wanted to see like how I stacked up with those guys. So and what it was like to train for it. And even in college, like my favorite training run was the long run every weekend. Like I love to just go do the 2-hour run, or sometimes my coach would let me do 18 miles even or something. So like just doing that was always my favorite. So it's like, cool, what if I get to do this like 2 times a week? Like that would be really fun too. So just figuring that out and going for it, and loved Auburn and knew some of those trails already where Formidable was. So it seemed like a good first go at it.
Now, Auburn, California, is that got a lot of elevation, I would imagine?
To me, it sure did, man. It's called Formidable because it has 4 big climbs. I think it comes out to maybe 5,000 or 6,000 feet for the 50K, which like isn't insane, but to me back then that was a whole lot. Yeah.
I mean, that's still a lot to people that have not ran on trails much. Like when they sign up for their first 50K, I mean, there's a little 50K here in Greenback called Firewater, and it's like 3,000 or 4,000 feet for a 50K. So I mean, that's still quite a bit compared to some of the other ones.
Yeah, it's an honest 50K anyway. Yeah. Man, so it was. I look back on this race a lot as a moment of knowing like I could be good at this. I have what it takes, but I did not nail it that day for sure. It was. I mean, didn't know anything about nutrition at all. So my coach before, who had coached me in college, who was a good ultra runner, told me to like eat a gel every 20 or 30 minutes or whatever. And I hadn't practiced that at all. He said, it's muddy and cold, so you'll be burning more calories than you think. So eat more than you think. So whatever, I tried to eat whatever gels they had at the aid station. I think it was like V Fuel or something like that, which reminds me a lot of Hammer gels. So those kind of like, but that's what we had back then. To think about how much that's changed since then. So I got an upset stomach somewhere around 18 miles. So I was like, I'm pretty much almost there. I'll just stop eating. And then that turned into like the last 2 miles being 30 plus minute miles. So that's kind of how it went. But also I was like, at some point I was like, could see like whoever it was, like a Nike sponsored runner back then. I'm like, wow, I could like see that this guy's back, or like I almost passed someone. So I was like, kind of knew like, okay, I at least know what it feels like, and I have the ability to go that fast. I just have so much to learn and experience to figure out how to like make it happen all the way. So, but it was like encouraging, but also like the hardest thing I ever done. I remember like I just had like one tiny handheld and like hardly drank any water. I was probably dehydrated so bad.
Yeah, I would imagine it's warm
Just
there.
those things that all of our first ultra, I'm sure, is just like eye opening of like, okay, you don't just run and tough it out. Like, yeah, that's a piece of it, but there's so much more that goes in.
Yeah, and 18 miles on with no fuel, that's, like you said, that's hard. That turns into walking some miles that are, very unpleasant, and you're not you're not yourself at that point.
Yeah.
So you're saying this was the championship one, and this was your first 50K,
Uh-huh.
and you did it in 4 hours and 52,
Uh-huh.
and finished 15th overall,
And walked.
and walked 30-minute miles at the end.
Yeah, so you obviously, like you said, you were drawn to it just from like the competition part, and competing with some of the top athletes there, and trying to keep up with them. Obviously it drug you in, like that passion or that competition. What do you think it was that made you want to continue to pursue the longer distance?
Yeah, good question. I mean, if I love running, and if ultra running didn't exist, I think I'd be all in on like, I would do 5Ks on the track for the rest of my life if I had to. Like, I do like just kind of finding limits. So like, I think that's ultimately what brings me to running, is like that, getting that chance to just like chase your own limits and kind of have a good way to measure it. And then ultra running like kind of just hypes that up to a whole nother level, where like you're really finding your limits in different ways. And then you also have so many different inputs you can put into it that can affect it. There's like a 5K, I kind of know like at some point my biggest limiting factor is like going to be my talent, or there's only so many ways to train, and you get on the track, you put some spikes on, and then you go run as hard as you can for 15 minutes or whatever. So like there's that. But then like ultra running, like to find your limit in even a 50K, there's so many things that go into it, of like nutrition strategy and race strategy and terrain and shoe choice, and like, should I have done more speed? Should I have run more trails? Should I have done more vert? Like there's so many different ways to think about it, that kind of that quest of finding limits within it just kind of opens up to become really, really fun to me.
Yeah, it's kind of it's one of those where you're always trying to improve for yourself,
right?
Which eventually leads to being competitive in some races, and that that even for some people like even fuels the fire even more when you actually start competing for like podium spots in races. But that can also be detrimental to a runner too, because then you start expecting to do that, and when you have a bad day, it's completely different. Like you put too much pressure on yourself going forward. So it's kind of ebbs and flows, because like with ultras, so many things can go wrong the further you go. So it's kind of hard to navigate that sometimes, but it definitely, like, that competition piece and just pushing yourself is definitely, a lot of people's attractions, and obviously it's yours too, just wanting to be better. But I agree with what you said too. Like if there was no races, I would just go run. Like that's just like, I mean, just like you, I see, we see you running in the National Forest or somewhere all the time. Like that's just, it's just beautiful and awesome and just relaxing to go do that, regardless of the races. Like the races is like that's the celebration from all the training you've put in, like to go put it out there. But the fun stuff is like being out there every day and getting to spend time in the woods and just seeing all kinds of cool shit.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So we go 50K. It doesn't go well, obviously. I mean, it goes pretty good, but doesn't go well at the end.
It goes well enough that it indicates like I should give this another shot. It's kind of what it was for me. It's like, okay.
Yeah, what's funny is it doesn't go extremely well for him, but he still does it in less than 5 hours. So that's pretty impressive.
Pretty good.
It's Auburn trails though, like all smooth, no rocks, no roots, It's basically a 50K road race.
But then you move to Tennessee and you get that internship for coaching. And what, I see then that you signed up for Yamacraw, which, we're good friends with that race director. That's Brian Gages. So, and you had a really good performance there. 4 hours, 35 minutes. You podium that race, third place overall. How was that difference of just running a 50K in California and then coming and running a 50K in Kentucky? Like, I would imagine you're talking about completely different conditions and just the humidity of the mountains, the rocks, the roots here. It's much different.
I have a specific memory of one of my running buddies from California. He was always better at the downhills than me. Like in California, he would just bomb down, and then I'd like have to fight to try and keep up with him. And then I lived out here for a year, and then went back to California, and then I was just like dropping him on the downhills, not realizing like it just changed my entire perspective of like trails and what trail running was. So yeah, it was totally different. And I guess that's a good example. Like even though like that race I ran in, I think 4:30-ish. And that was one of those like, okay, I kind of figured this out a little more. So even though it was still close in time to the other one, I knew that course was hard. And it probably has this maybe 4,000 feet, similar amount of elevation gain. But yeah, for me, it was very technical at that time. And I was trying to figure out how to do that. I was wearing those like Solomon S-Lab, like the real minimal shoes back then, because it just like that they gave me the confidence to run those kind of trails hard. But man, yeah, by the end of it, my calves and feet would be pretty tired and sore.
Yeah, I would imagine
your balance there.
I would imagine your feet probably are just like at that point a little tender from all the it's a little bit different when you're running some of these trails with all the rocks. I mean, I actually tried to run a race in minimal shoes and it did not. I ran it, but it didn't work.
Yeah.
And then I tried to do No Business 100 in a pair of Vivo barefoots, and that didn't work either. We didn't make it very far on that one, but I just remember that 50K I did in the barefoot shoes. Like my feet were like almost felt kind of numb in a way, from all the pounding at the end. So I can imagine what yours felt like in those Solomons, because those are fast shoes, but they don't have much cushion.
Right. Yeah. But that's what I needed back then to like feel like I wasn't going to break an ankle out there.
Well, I know that feeling too. So let's fast forward just a little bit and talk about like your next big distance here. So you've got Looking Glass 50 miler, and that's in North Carolina. So we're still over here in East Coast technical trails, obviously. Mm-hmm. So that race is in November. I mean, I would imagine North Carolina, that's probably pretty cool temps too.
Yeah, it was cold
and lots of leaves.
But you had a hell of a performance there. 7-ish hours, first place overall. So first 50 miler, you come out and win it in North Carolina, which is pretty impressive. What as you're transitioning through like these 50Ks, you come from California, then you do your next 50K, and now we're jumping into this 50 miler. Was there anything at that point, before we jump into this race, was there anything at this point like you were starting to figure out like things you could do better with fueling, or was you starting to learn different gear that was helping you, or was it just training?
I still hadn't dove too far into the fueling side. I think I was still just taking it 1 gel an hour and having some drink mix and not really counting it up too much. I was maybe during that time messing a little bit with like the high fat, like the fat metabolism side of it. So I'd like eat a little lower carb, see how that worked. It kind of worked for a while during that time, but to messing around with some of that stuff, but still definitely learning. But the training was coming around. So that one, for that Looking Glass specifically, I remember like having one of those. I mean, it definitely doesn't happen like this every year where you're like going up to a big race and you're like, all right, I just did like 5 months where I pretty much did everything that I set out to do in training. And so that like good confidence going in. So that's kind of how that one was. And it kind of seems when I have that training, it definitely reflects in the race where anything can happen, but as long as there's no catastrophe, then that's kind of how that one was, where it just ended up being a really, really good day. And kind of that one showed me what ultras really can be like, or that was the first time I tasted that kind of that magical side of them where you're like, sometimes you just have that day where nothing goes wrong and somehow it feels good the whole time and it doesn't make any sense. But yeah,
And you can't replicate it for a long time
Yeah.
again.
yeah, no, I don't. I'm not sure I have. I'm not sure I have or ever will quite with that one. And maybe Pinhoti was the closest I had to that, where it kind of surprised me of being smooth. Or that one was maybe I consider it like maybe probably one of my best days of my entire running career, like counting college, counting track, road racing, everything. That one was one that stands out. Of like I was on that day and it worked out well.
Well, and having a solid training block, like you said, standing at that start line gives you a little added confidence that you put the work in. I don't know much about this race. Is it a point to point or is it a loop?
Good question. So it's now 100K, and it's kind of like it's not like one loop, but there's like a couple, you go out and you kind of loop back towards, then you go out again sort of thing. And I don't know, they've changed the course a couple times, but it's got some big climbs in there for sure. But then it also connects in some dirt roads where you can get rolling pretty good on some dirt roads. So
yeah, it looks just from the pictures, it looks like it's got some good routes and technical sections to it.
Yeah, you do some sections on the Art Lobe Trail if you know that one. So that one's notoriously technical, so for sure. But it's a kind of mixed terrain too.
Cool. So it's not a 50 miler anymore. It's 100K.
Yeah, now it's 100K. Yeah.
Add it to it.
All right, and then you go. If I'm looking at this right, you go from Looking Glass 50 miler, which was in 2019. You don't run another ultra till 2021.
That could be right. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of people who have that 2020 lull.
Just running in the woods, training.
Yeah.
Yeah, there weren't a lot of events during the COVID year. I think
No, they weren't.
we, that was the year we started East Coast Adventures, and we moved our race, which was Fort Frenzy, to August because of COVID. We ended up getting to have it. And then, Tony and Kathy, there wasn't many races in Tennessee that year, but I know that we and Magic Number Events had it, but yeah, there just wasn't a lot overall. I mean, a lot of people's 2020, you're right. It's just not there.
That's when I started, so I only got to do a couple anyway, so I didn't miss hardly any.
That's that flyer at Anytime Fitness.
Yep.
Caught Matt's eye. So you come, so you get through COVID, and I assume during COVID you just continued training the whole time.
Yeah, kind of, sort of. COVID was actually like one of my like downtimes in running where like I just wasn't enjoying it. It didn't feel good. I wasn't sure about coaching anymore because it had been really difficult with COVID. Just like everything that changed, and it's like, man, I'm not really making much money here. Like, how do I justify this? Like, I could put so much more time that like not in coaching and running into like a job where I could actually have a savings account and like all this stuff. So that was like one of my kind of come to Jesus moments with running. And like, do I really want to do this? And luckily at the end of it, I found like, okay, like I actually want to do this, which I'm not sure I'd ever really, like I always did it just cause I hadn't had to have that moment of like, do I actually like this? And so that was kind of my time. 2020 was like, all right, like if I'm going to do this, I got to do it because I want to. There's kind of no point regardless of doing it if not. So kind of went through that during COVID.
Well, that's understandable. I think we all go through that at some point. I go through that every year with my job. But you do bring up a good point. I have to ask you, like, what was that like? Before we jump into this next race, like, what was that like coaching athletes during COVID? Did you even get to coach, or was you all just like staying at home? School was closed, couldn't do anything.
Let's see that spring semester. So we went to indoor nationals, which is March, and then they shut down school pretty much right when we got back for that year. So there was no outdoor season that year, and we did like everyone went to online classes. So I went back to California, like kind of refuge with my family for a while. And then we started back that next fall, but then, that was when just everything was, we had to like take the kids' temperatures every day before practice. And if they had a fever, they couldn't run or like whatever it was, and quarantine and all that stuff. And then people got COVID, the whole team had COVID for a while. So all that stuff. So, but we got through it. And that was ultimately what caused Sam Roberts. He's like, all right, I'm retiring now. So that's about when I had to start figuring out how to take over everything too. So I think there was a lull in there too from just like my life changed during that time of just like my responsibilities. And I wasn't just when I was assistant coach, I could just go run with the team at practice half the time. And, like that was part of my training was just getting to go run 9 miles with the guys. So different. That was kind of like a growth point in my life where like, all right, I've got to become a real adult here now.
Had you met Leah at this point?
Yes, Leah and we had met, I think Thanksgiving 2018, we met up for like a group run and ran together some. So I'd known her for a long time before we actually started dating. We'd kind of go on a couple of runs here and there, but yeah.
So y'all weren't dating at this point during COVID?
We weren't, yeah. It took until we finally did like a full road trip together out to Broken Arrow where we got to know each other pretty good.
Well, at least y'all got to skip COVID together.
Yeah.
However, that might have helped you pass the time where you weren't questioning your life and job at that point. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I was just curious on that because I know that a lot of schools, like, they just stopped everything. There was hardly anything going on at that point. And I would imagine that was pretty hard. I would imagine that's pretty hard on, especially a coach, when that's like your career and you can't even do the job that you're trying to do at that point. So
did you get to recruit or anything during that time, or was it just like all?
Yeah, you can. I mean, it's just via phone call and stuff, and it was harder for the kids who that was their senior track season where they didn't get that. Probably every sport they're like, well, they just never got to do their senior whatever it was. So then in college they let them. They basically you have 4 seasons of eligibility. So there's some kids who are still playing those out, like they're doing their extra season on their 5th year of college right now. So they get to do their senior season in college, but all those kids who were in high school just kind of had to miss it.
Yeah.
Hope we don't have to ever go through that.
Yeah, let's not do that again.
Let's jump into your next race. And this is probably, Yamacraw's a pretty big race. So I don't know what Looking Glass is. Is that a pretty big race?
Not really. It's kind of a hometown race.
Okay.
Yeah, I had looked because I would love to do it again. I really like that race.
Yeah, I've heard a lot. I've never done it, but I've heard it's really good.
A lot of the course is the no business course, right?
Some of it, yeah. I don't think all of it, but I think some of it is. Yeah. But then you go out and you do a run bum race. So I just had it up here and I've lost it apparently. But here we go. Quest for the Crest.
10K.
Did you do the 10K?
It's 10K.
See.
Yeah. 10K.
The second time. You did the 50K the first time. Then
yeah, I've done both. I've done the 50K and the 10K. Yeah.
Okay. Well, you won the 10K. So
yeah.
But that's another race, obviously, in North Carolina. But I would imagine that 10K is a big race. I got to look and see how many people were in this thing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, there's a bunch of did not starts, but there's 70 something runners in this 10K. And looks like, for the most part, it was a pretty tight race. Like we're talking minutes apart a minute apart between first, second, and thirds.
Yeah.
And at this point, you've done 50Ks, 50 milers. Like, why 10K? Just for the hell of it?
Well, have you guys ever run out? Do you know where this course is, Quest for the Crest?
I know where it's at. I've never ran it. It's on my list.
It's on Mount Mitchell. So this 10K goes basically straight up for 3 miles and then straight down for 3 miles. It's like a 10K with, I guess, over 3,000 feet of climbing in it and descent. So that's why I chose it, just to maybe it could have been the 10Ks on a Sunday. And so it's possible I had a track meet on Saturday. So I was like, well, I'll do the 10K then.
There you go. That is nice.
I do like those shorter efforts for just kind of working on, like, doing a 10K where you got to climb 3,000 feet. It's just going to hurt a lot. So just working on that burn and getting better at climbing and just kind of raising that ceiling. So think that's probably why I did it. I don't remember exactly now. I may have had like a plan to try and do some longer mountain race in the summer. That was kind of a prelude to it. But
So that's why you like that Watch Easy climb on the Warriors Passage.
yeah, that's exactly
3,000 feet straight up.
Yeah, exactly. Dude, where else can you get that besides like Mount Mitchell and like in the South? There's not a whole lot of places, and that's kind of a hidden one that no one knows about.
I know I'm still chasing your little segment there too.
I love how consistent you are. This is cool to like see, but like you go and do Yamakra 50K again, and you're within 3 minutes of the exact same time with the same podium. Like that's consistent. Like that's good. That's showing like your consistency in your training and your nutrition, etc. That's pretty impressive to do back to back, because a lot of people can't run the same course very consistent because they either want to, they want to try to outperform their last one and they blow up usually. So, I just think that's pretty cool to see, like to be able to see that on your results and stuff.
Thanks.
But let's jump on up here to your. And if I'm following this right, we're getting to our very first 100K, which is Grindstone.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I saw some pictures on your social media as I was going through it, stalking. But tell us a little bit about this race. And it's Grindstone's now a UTMB race, but I don't know if it was was it a UTMB race when you ran it? Yeah.
Yeah, and it was Western State's golden ticket that year. So that's kind of, I guess, why it stood out. Like for some reason, just those competitive races where I know there's going to be a bunch of the top guys, like they're attractive to me just to go see where I stack up in. And me and Leah both kind of like doing that, so I think it's fun. That was an opportunity for locally within the fall cross country season where I could get out there, go race some really fast guys, and again kind of learn a new distance and get to visualize what they're really doing out there. Because you don't really, you can like look at a time and be like, okay, they averaged 8 whatever pace for 60 miles. Like it's pretty impressive. But until you like go out on the course and like then you look at it like, wow, they were flying. So it's really cool just to be out there and be in the middle of it and even just try a little bit to do what they do and kind of see how it plays out for me. So, and that's how I learned.
You say middle of it, but you were still top 20. So
yeah.
Yeah, you had a good day. And Grindstone's not an easy course. I mean, to hold an 8-something pace out there, it's you got to be a good runner with good footing.
I was once again on that one right at 4:30 through 50K. I've done so many 50Ks in the right at 4:30.
So that's your magic number, Mike.
Yeah, something about it.
I got to be careful. I don't need to say Magic and Mike too close together. Now let's talk about real quick, before I get to that, like how was it lining up at Grindstone? I would imagine for 100K too, like that race, like seeing, more competitiveness there with that obviously being a golden ticket. Like, how did that feel lining up with everybody out there? Did it make you anxious or did it pump you up?
I mean, I think like I knew I'm like, this is a long race. So I just kind of was able to like let the emotions not get to me. I'm like, I'm just going to start running and not really think about anything else. And I'll figure it out as I go. So I just try not to overthink it especially for the long ones. It's like, man, I could be hype on the start line, but that's not really going to help me like 6 hours from now.
Yeah.
So, we're like, let's see. If we're looking at Grindstone here, we're, 6 years in roughly to your ultra running? How's the fueling going? Have you started like messing with this at this point?
Okay, yeah. So Grindstone, it might be the first time I tried to really apply like a little higher carb fueling. Like messing around with some of these new gels that are easier to eat, and having more of a detailed plan where I counted out numbers and all of that. So definitely, I think it went pretty good. Didn't have any stomach issues, but also like at some point, like I didn't feel like I still at the end got like tired and broke down, so it's like it didn't play out that differently than how old feeling works. So I had some more to play with it, and I think I lately have been just doing a little even more. I don't remember my exact numbers. I think I probably did 80 grams of carbs per hour for Grindstone. just to like be a little cautious, but also start working towards that way. So it's not crazy high. But now knowing and not realizing then like how fast I was going to be running, in my mind, I'm like, okay, I'm like going for a 60-mile run. Like it's going to be my zone 2 or whatever. But no, it was way faster. Just to be in the top 20, I had to like work pretty hard on some of those climbs and even the flats and everything. So definitely like realizing, all right, I got to probably fuel even more just to sustain this high effort.
Yeah, and I mean that is a great point too, though, because at the end you were still pretty wiped.
Yeah, I mean,
but you also probably ran a hell of a lot harder than you were planning on it with that, and if you probably wouldn't have been able to do that without the higher carbs. So like it probably helped sustain you there, and you probably taxed your body even more by that. So I would imagine you were probably destroyed at the end. But I mean that's a great performance at Grindstone. So
yeah.
Did you have any GI distress at all afterwards?
I don't think so. I only remember being in pain and not being able to walk. I don't remember my stomach very much, so I think that went all right.
That walk of shame afterwards. It's like,
oh man,
it's the waddle. You waddle after.
My favorite's Mary after she won Yeti. She's walking out of the Airbnb we rented, and it's 2-story. So the bedroom's upstairs. So she's already like made this terrible walk downstairs. And then we walk outside, and my Lexus or Land Cruiser sitting out there in front, and she literally just like puts her hands on the hood, and she's like walking around it, and then she's like, champion, and she's just laughing because like I think that's what she said was champion, because like she was like, this is the champion walk or something. It was so funny because she was just being sarcastic, but she just couldn't move hardly at all. So it was like, and I have this video of her and this other lady that finished, and both finished Yeti, and they were both in black like jogging suits, like tracks, like pants, and a hoodie, and they're both in flip-flops, and they're both waddling side by side after the race. So I've like got this recording of them, and I'm like, look, you ladies are perfect. Like it's just so funny. But we all know that walk. But I mean that's a walk at the end though that like you can be proud of.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like because you left it out there. Like if you leave a race and you're walking fine, like
did you really run hard enough?
You probably didn't push as hard as you could have, and I would rather know that I did leave it out there, especially on a big race. Like for Grindstone, I mean, you signed up for that because you wanted a golden ticket.
That's exactly why.
Do you remember what the first place time was on that race?
Gosh, so might have been a little under 9 hours, 8.
I mean, you weren't too far off in the 10 range. I mean,
yeah.
But I mean, that's funny when you hear people talk about like 100K and it's 9 hours. It's because some 100Ks are much faster, but just the difference in terrain, and the whole course. So it's kind of crazy to see. Which, I mean, we're going to see that actually in the next race we're going to talk about, the Never Summer 100K. I mean, you did that almost 3 hours faster.
I did the 60K, so that's a 60K timer.
Okay.
Yeah, no chance. That one was brutal for sure.
Well, that's in Colorado too. I just noticed that.
Yeah, that's the one. So you talked about Leah. She'd done that one place. She placed 3rd with a bunch of
wow. Yeah, that's awesome.
And people. So that was a big one for us at altitude, where we had to, you're talking about like finding limits in ultra running, and it's so fun. Like here's another layer of like now you're at altitude and you find a new limit there. So it's pretty cool.
So you did the 60K and she done the 100K?
Right.
I remember her talking about this because you ran that and then
she got a pacer for 18 miles the next day.
So you basically ran the 100K?
Yeah, I think I may have ended up with the most mileage for the weekend. I don't know, because I did that, and then like because I was crewing her all day too. So like some of the crew stations you had to like walk 2 miles in and all that stuff. So I had the long weekend for sure.
That's a beautiful area too, correct?
It was very cool. And you went like up this, it's called Diamond Peak, and it was steeper than anything we have on the East Coast, and just like straight up, and then you couldn't see the top, and you're like for 30 minutes just like walking up this grass field going to something. Pretty cool.
I mean, with you all going to Colorado some in the summers and stuff, that probably probably helps. But did you, and I don't know if you got to do that before this race, depending on when it was, probably, nope, July, probably not, but maybe. Did you have any problems with altitude?
Yeah, I mean, we had done a pretty good, like, 5 weeks at altitude, it seemed like, and, like, tried to be a little smarter and, like, do some workouts at altitude and adapt. And then race day, it was like, I called it tight chest club. It was like the whole time I felt like my chest was like almost like an asthma attack. I just like could hardly breathe. So, and then it made it hard to eat too. That was one where like just a gel could make you nauseous pretty quickly. So definitely a learning experience there.
Yeah, and those two things combined do not feel good at all.
My favorite part about that race though for me was like within the top, I think it might have been the top 20 people, I was the only one not from Colorado. It's like Colorado, everyone, and then there's like me.
Really?
So that was kind of fun.
I think
Cool.
Once that race happened, I think Leah posted that, or maybe one of you two posted that, and I saw that. I was like, that's pretty cool. It's always cool when you see these out west races, and then you see like Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, we probably know these guys.
Exactly.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, shoot, for like the top 30, it's mostly just people from Colorado.
Yeah.
And you're the only one in the top 10 that's even, hell, you're the only one in the top 20 from Tennessee, aren't you? Yeah. Or from anywhere.
Yeah, from anywhere but Colorado.
No, 22 has Oregon.
Yeah, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
That is kind of cool.
And that was one where we brought, so me and Leah ran, but we also had about 7 or 8 other people from Chattanooga who ran, and they all did well too. Everyone either finished the 100K or the 60K. So it was like half, I think almost half the field DNF the 100K.
Wow.
All the Tennesseans got it done, so we were really proud of that one of our little group.
That's a crazy DNF, right?
So sounds like something we put on.
Well, Cherokee's worse right now, but maybe we can do better than that.
Yeah, it's a very low.
Yeah, I saw you guys post that Cherokee. I'm like, man, that looks cool. I'm like, July? Is it in July? Yeah, like, man, that's a whole different ballgame there.
Yeah, we were told multiple times that the cutoffs were too tight, so we're gonna help it out this time.
130K is hard.
Yeah.
70K is fine. That one's good. 130K is hard.
So your race is not it's Blue Ridge Ultra. That race is pretty hard, isn't it? Doesn't that have a lot of elevation?
Yeah, it's over 7, maybe close to 8,000. It is.
That's ridiculous. I think that's the one Mary's going to do this year.
Is she?
She's doing that in Cruel Jewel.
Okay, yeah. So they're similar courses. They overlap a little bit.
Yeah. So her goal is to do both of those. So she's, I think, I may be wrong on Blue Ridge. I know she's wanting to do Cruel Jewel.
Is it Blue Ridge Marathon?
Yeah, marathon.
Is it the one on the road?
Oh yeah, it is. This is different. This is the trail, isn't it?
I think she said something about the road was really hard.
Right. I think you're right. Yeah, I'm getting them confused.
I'm not sure. Could have been this one. Who knows?
This is not on road, right?
No.
Yeah. Okay. There's 2 different ones. I get confused. Just like at Fall Creek Falls this past weekend when we were there. There's 3 different races in Fall Creek Falls, 3 different times a year. So I had to learn all about that.
Well, so, Frozen Falls, Fall Creek Falls 100, and
there's a Fall Creek Falls 50K. Different route. It's in the spring. So, anyways, which is kind of cool. I mean, it's a cool area, but
yeah.
Mike, this race you absolutely crushed. It looks like things went well that day. Was that you think a benefit of all of the other training that you had done, the races from like coming off that 60K? Was that what it was? 60K? Do you think all that helped you when you went into this race? Obviously,
for sure. That one was kind of a piece of the Pinhoti training block. So, and Leah did that one too. So that one I was just trying not to get beat by my wife, really.
I think she said in the podcast that she was chasing you.
Yeah, at one point, like a mile in, she was like still with me. Maybe 1 or 2 miles in, I'm like, all right, here we go. So
yeah, she said it was really fun chasing you around the course. Yep. That was her word.
Yeah, and like I think at some point, so that it ended up being really hot that day, which kind of ended up being perfect practice for Pinhoti because it also ended up being pretty warm. And I was having some cramps or somewhere with 6 miles to go. and just like fearful. I'm like, she's gonna come past me. Here she comes. Like I'm gonna be cramping, like hobbling down this downhill, and she'll come flying by me. I was kind of half expecting it.
Well, and that's kind of cool too. I mean, and I think we talked about this on the podcast when we had her on, but you all both podiumed, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, she was second overall. She was right behind
Yeah.
me.
I mean, that's really cool as a couple too, to, first place overall for both of you, like the male and female. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Were you concerned at all when she was like chasing you?
I mean, when I was feeling good, I was like, all right, I got this. But at some point, when it started getting hot and I was cramping, I was like, oh, I know I didn't have that big a lead on her.
That's fun though, that you all both are that competitive and that you were both, good runners to be able to do that.
Yeah, it's really cool. On like a couple of years ago, like for me, when we go to the real big races like Grindstone, I'm like on a good day, I might beat all the pro women, but on like a okay day, if I'm falling apart towards the end, like my MO is like the first and second woman coming by me with like 10 miles to go or 5 miles to go or whatever. So Leah's always said like, okay, so all I got to do is like get as good as you and I'll be as good as the top women. I'm like, yeah, pretty much. Like, but she's like slowly chipping away at that. I'm like, yeah, she's pretty much as good as me now. So I think pretty soon here she'll be at the top of the sport.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you all both are having, great performances.
Yeah.
Which, speaking of that, let's talk about Pinhoti now. So Pinhoti 100, you finish 18 hours, you podium the race, you're second overall. What was the training for that race? Like, how was it going? And then what was your expectation going into the race? And was it to finish in 18 hours?
So training was another kind of one of those rare training blocks for us. Kind of went pretty good. I remember telling Leah before the race, man, if this was any other distance, if this was the race was a 50K, 50 mile, or even 100K, I'd be like pretty dang cocky right now. But being a 100 miler, you kind of can't quite go there. So especially the first one. So I definitely was feeling pretty good about it. A lot of especially like, I always keep like some speed and threshold work and everything as part of my training all the way through. Even for this, I did. So I was still like feeling pretty fast overall for, like if I was to go race a 5K, like I would be confident to get on the line and be ready to like perform. But also like the long runs had some big weekends, including that Blue Ridge Ultra. I did that. And then like the next day I went and ran like 12 miles and felt pretty good. So it was like some of those big weekends were kind of clicking pretty smooth. And I knew to feel good in 100, that was probably going to have to happen. Is I got to have some of those weekends where those big miles aren't scary even for a weekend. So yeah, the training went really good. And then when I looked at Pinhoti, I kind of gauged, knowing the course record is mid 16 hours, like 16:30. And so I was kind of eyeing like, do I have like, if I have even the perfect training block, do I have a shot at that? And then, so I was kind of estimating I would probably like kind of humble down, like, all right, probably somewhere around 17 hours is what I'm aiming for if like everything goes really well. But I also was not, I knew like it's 100 miles and like the chances that the first time everything goes really well is not super likely. So there's every chance, like, I still definitely have the mindset that I think is necessary for hundreds of like, no matter what happens, like I'm gonna get this thing done.
Mm-hmm.
That's the main accomplishment to accomplish with this. So I was gonna be okay with if like the wheels fell off and I had to walk it in and do a 20 whatever hour 100 miler. I was still gonna be proud of that. Still like went back to just, it's fun for me to try and find the limit, and so I just like to unturn all the stones and see if I can put together a good day for me. So I was happy to do that for Pinhoti.
Was there ever a moment that you were just completely off, weren't having a good section, or did everything just kind of go pretty smooth for you in the 100?
It was pretty smooth, and then like the last 12 were really hard. But like, I guess if there's going to be a hard patch, like that's a good place to have it. It's like, well, at least like I'm gonna make it, so I just got to get through this, and I'm literally there. So I think I was lucky to have that. Or I did start to have some GI issues there, and then just like felt like even though that was kind of the trail had gotten kind of runnable at that point, I was just like, no matter how hard I tried, I was just still running 11-minute miles. I was like, all right, I guess we're just running 11 all the way to the finish here. That was about it. But everything else, yeah, pretty dang smooth.
What was the fueling strategy for this one?
So
I would imagine from the start of this VK back before you in California to now, you've at least, sampled and experienced enough that you've got a pretty good fueling strategy that you're working towards. I mean, we're always trying to get better, but just curious to see where you're at now and what you're playing with.
Yeah, so I've learned that I need a lot of salt. So like I think a lot of heavy sweaters, and then
Right there with you.
I was hoping Pinhoti would be a little cooler, which would help with that, but it ended up being humid.
Record year.
Yeah, it's super hot. So luckily, like night before, like had the crew like, all right, we're adding like an extra salt tab to all my drink mixes too. Like had some of the little salt tab pills, and I was like, we're gonna open these up and like dump some more salt in my drink mixes.
Yep.
Just get those numbers a little higher. I have them all listed out. I don't remember all of them off the top of my head, but so my favorite gel is called Victus, and I just found it through the feed.
I've saw that.
It's one of those, it's like the modern gels where it's like pretty easy to get down. It's like pretty liquidy, and like neutral flavor. It's like lemon, but like barely tastes the lemon in it. But what I like about it is it's got over 300 milligrams of sodium like in the gel. It's easy to get down. So like I already got a bunch of salt in my drink mixes, and then I'm like salt in my gels, and so like just keeping the salt coming in somehow kind of just keeps me going on. I think it's what I'm learning. And I'm excited. There's a new drink mix that I got that I'm going to try. This guy in Texas makes. It's called Hyperlight, and it's got 1,000 milligrams of sodium per 60 grams of carbs or something like that. So that you can get in a bottle. They'll leave in a little saltier, which we'll see if that works out. That could help downplay some of the salty gels. So we'll see.
Yeah,
I'm right there with you on the salt. I think I'm, about 1,500 milligrams an hour is what I'm sweating out.
Right.
So I'm with you. Like I've changed my entire fueling strategy, and Pinhoti was actually the first time I was actually getting to race with it.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't really get to race with it, so we'll try it again in the next race. But Tailwind I was doing 3 scoops of Tailwind, which I think I'm trying to remember now. I don't even remember. I think that's like 500 or 600 milligrams of sodium.
Yeah.
And close to 90 carbs, if I remember right. So I was starting with that, and then I was going to go down to 2 and, just adjust from there. But I'm the same way. Like it's trying to find that sodium. I really love Goo Roctane.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's one of my favorite fuel mixes. It just doesn't have enough salt, and I can add salt to it. But I was I'm toying with other things now, trying to do like you and just kind of get it dialed in. So I'm playing with different gels and different electrolyte mixes, trying to figure that out. But
we mentioned it, I think, a couple podcasts ago. But I started adding the salt tablets like you did. I'd open them up, put them in my drink.
Mm-hmm.
And then you mentioned putting LMNT. So I did that Saturday because I ran back-to-back halves.
Did that help?
It did fine. But then the next day, I used my salt tablets. I just opened them up, put them in there. So, like, I think either way that works because, like you said, Roctane doesn't have enough sodium for what we need. So I put 2 salt tablets Sunday in my Roctane. No cramps. Either days, no cramps.
Well, that's good.
So we're in the right direction.
Yeah. That's an improvement. I was telling them, like, it was a couple podcasts ago.
Yeah.
But I keep an unflavored LMNT in my running bottle.
Yeah.
And if I feel like I'm getting behind, I just have someone dump that thing into my electrolyte mix. It's 1,000 milligrams of sodium going right in. It's probably overkill, but
let me tell you what I did Saturday for this half. I put my 3 scoops of Roctane in there, and then I was going to put half of that LMNT in my little handheld.
Yeah, I bet you poured the whole thing.
The whole thing went in.
Yeah.
The whole thing, so it was like, it's about 1,500. And I'm like, I tasted it. I'm like, oh, man, I can taste the salt. But
like drinking sweat.
I didn't cramp Saturday or Sunday. Yeah. So it worked. It worked.
But I mean, and to your point though, Mike, like everybody's slightly different on their electrolyte, when they're sweating, what they're losing. So dialing that in is important.
Yeah.
And it takes a while to figure that out.
It's different in different conditions too, right? And then like I love the drink mixes. Like it's easy to get calories and salt in that way. But if it's not that hot, you're not going to be drinking that much. So then you just totally throw off all your numbers if you're not having a whole bottle an hour or whatever it is. So it's a lot to figure out.
Do you feel like you dialed it in pretty good in Pinhoti?
I do. So the one thing I think that I got two things that I think I could improve on for that was I probably overestimated the goo octane mix that they had at the aid stations, right? Like there was one point where I was like kind of feeling pretty bonky, and I think I just I counted it as like whatever I would scoop in there, but I think it was a lot lighter at what they really had. So I started adding in an extra, like a smaller gel, like a Science and Sport or even a spring gel during that time, just to like a supplement for that, which I was lucky to figure that out on the fly. And then the other one was I had planned to like have these like an oat bar, like a Martin Solid. There's another brand that made like something similar that I was planning to eat. And the first one that I tried, it took me so long to eat like half of it, and I was like, screw this, I'm like going back to the gels. So I pretty much ended up having no solid food that whole day, and then had some bathroom problems towards the end of the race that, I don't know, maybe if I could figure out how to, even if I just take an extra 30 seconds in an aid station to like have a few bites of a PB&J or something, like just any, or banana. I was like, why didn't I have bananas? That would have been a good one. Maybe something else just to help kind of with the digestion.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that, that's the aftermath report of any race. It's like, oh, I could have. Why didn't I do that? You think sometimes like, why didn't I do that? I don't have that for Pinhoti because I was just stupid for trying to run even further than I did. But like, I love that part of learning. Like when you finish a race and you're like, I bonked here. Man, I really should have did I miss something? Did I not take a gel? Did I not eat? What did I mess up on?
Yeah.
But it sounds like electrolytes though, you probably were good because you didn't cramp any, correct?
No. And yeah, and I wasn't peeing a lot, but like every couple of few hours I'd have to like stop and pee a little bit. So I was like, okay, I'm somewhat hydrated at least, which
yeah.
I think Blue Ridge, the plan I had didn't have enough salt and I cramped. And so like I figured out after that, like, okay, maybe even more. Even at that point, I felt like I was having so much. I had like added so much in. And I was like, all right, let me recalculate this and like try even more. And that kind of worked for the training runs after that. So went with it.
Have you had like a sweat test, or do you measure anything, or are you just going off of feel?
I haven't had a sweat test. Precision Fuel and Hydration they do sweat tests there. I think there's someone in Nashville who will do it, and it's really not that expensive. It's like $200 or $300, which I mean is probably about the amount of money you'll spend trying things and product anyways. But they also have a calculator where they can kind of give you some estimates. And you just kind of put like basically like, are you a heavy sweater? And then like, do you ever like, if you have salt stains on your clothes after runs sometimes, and like, that means you're probably also a pretty salty sweater. So you can kind of get some gauges off of that.
Well, add this to like your bucket list of gear to try one day, because this has been a game changer for me, and it's literally like $200 something.
$250.
And if you Google it, you can find a coupon for $50. I did, but it's called H-Drop. Have you heard of this?
I like just the other day on some other podcast, someone was talking about it.
So I bought it, I don't know, 6 months ago, maybe 7, 8, I don't know. But what's really cool about this thing, Mike, is it's almost like, it's like a heart rate monitor.
Mm-hmm.
It's rechargeable. It's not one of those where you just wear the patch and you throw it away or you have to mail it off. It measures in real time.
Okay.
You wear it on your arm, syncs to an app, tells you exactly what you're sweating, potassium, sodium, tells you your sweat content, your sweat rate, how much sweat you're sweating per hour.
Yeah.
Really cool. Great data. It also has this database of electrolyte drinks, and it will match your sweat content to the electrolyte drink mix, which is how I ended up with Scratch to begin with. I was looking through it, trying to understand it. But But I mean, this is something you can wear on every run. So like in the winter and in the summer, you can see the difference. And like what's been really cool for me to see is like if I drink and eat a lot of sodium, my sweat content will go up to 1500. If I'm not, my sweat content will be like 11 to 1200. So, you know, big difference there. But it tells you how much you should drink over the next 2 hours to recover, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's stuff you can learn. It's really cool. It's $200 something, and it's something that you can use just over and over and over. Kind of cool device. I don't know how long this thing's going to last, you know, because it's always getting wet. You know what I'm saying? Like it's supposed to work in rain, but I don't wear it in the rain. But you just literally wear it on your bicep. Just connects to an app. So,
well, speaking of this, it's on my Christmas list.
Oh, there you go.
So
see, if Brittany, Matt needs that.
I sent it to her, and I sent it to my mother-in-law. So if anybody out there wants to get it for me, just reach out. I can send you my address.
I'll plug it.
I will say so far, just it's cool. I want to get what I want to do, Mike, is get a real sweat test.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And compare it to that. Yeah. You know, I need to do that. But yeah, it's a cool device so far.
I'll plug it right here. Anyone doing the Cherokee Ultra in July needs to get this thing. Every single one of you guys, anyone planning on it, get it now.
You know what's crazy? Like me and you talked a little bit about the Cherokee and how you done almost the exact
course. It came up with a similar route, yeah.
Almost. And that's the exact course that we had designed out, except for it went into the wilderness, so we couldn't do it. But like that was pretty cool when you sent me that. I'm like, well, that's neat that he's done this.
Man, if you play around on maps enough, you can come up with, it's like a little maze.
Well, at some point, we're going to add a third distance, like a long distance. We may add a third distance regardless. We can be shorter.
Yeah, shorter or long, yeah.
But at some point, we want to try to make it 130 or 135 miler.
Yep.
And we've got a kind of a route.
I've got it.
At the same time, I was just kind of like, let's not do that.
Well, what I've got planned, or what I've got to, because I mess around the maps constantly, but I've got 130-ish route. Or we could do a 100-mile route, and you just kind of got to do some out and backs, which it's not as fun, you know, but well, in the future, we'll see what we can come up with.
We need to wait a year or two, get this race dialed in, and then we'll add it.
Well, if Mike runs enough up in there, I'll just track his little distances everywhere. Because I mean, I
don't get out there enough anymore.
We also don't want to just kill our volunteers. You know, that's the other piece.
Yeah.
We got one event that's going on in the same direction. If we do the 135, we're going to have other aid stations added in.
Yeah.
That's how, like, the 100 miler, you really don't add an aid station. It's just like it's a weird out and back or something weird it's doable.
Well, Mike, I got to ask you a question now. It looks like you're going back out west.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to do the Broken Arrow Sky Race.
46K.
In Lake Tahoe.
Yeah. I
bet that's a cool race.
It's a big one, man.
I've heard of this race. I do not know anything about it.
What is a 46K?
So they have a loop. It's at a ski resort, and they always have write the 46K, and then like it'll get changed because depending on the snow and depending on like the construction of the ski resort, it'll like get a little changed. But this is the race me and Leah road tripped out to do back in I guess that was 2021. Going back out.
So that's the race where y'all like got to actually connect. Cool.
I think she did say that.
That is cool.
That's a faster. I mean, looks like some fast times. 4 hours.
Yeah,
6K. That's moving.
Yeah, it's got a good. I think about 9,000 a game. It's like it's brutal.
I would imagine it's probably not very technical though. It's a pretty smooth race, but a lot of elevation.
Yeah, like going up, it's so steep and not technical that it's slippery. You know, you're just like on that loose dirt or rock, and you're just like one step forward, half a step back feeling. And then the downhill, I remember some real steep roads. And I do remember like just one section of single track that was a little technical, but not crazy.
Well, that's the only race I see in 2025. What else is on the radar?
Yeah, I'm still figuring it out. I am a little hungry for another 100-miler, just to give it another go and see what happens the second time around. I want to do Javelina, but I think it's going to end up falling next year on the same date of a cross country meet. So probably won't be able to do that one. Sometimes my race schedule is dictated by my work schedule. Everyone's by the work schedule, but yeah, the cross country and track schedule. So I have to
Well,
work around that
if
a
you
little
wait and
bit.
do Javelina in 2026, we can do it together.
Okay.
I can't do it. I can't do it next year either because I've got No Business and Yeti, with like a month apart, both the hundreds. And I've got to do No Business because I need this double buckle. I got to go do it the other direction. And it's like almost the same weekend. So if you wait to 2026,
Everything's the same weekend as No Business.
So yeah, still figuring out what that big race will be. Kind of just got like a lot of 50Ks on the radar right now. I'm just kind of filling the gaps. Looking at Gone Loco maybe, just because that's like my hometown race in a way. So
I know, like
perfect. Yeah,
I think I posted it like
miles out on the Eureka Trail.
I think I posted it like last year, or the year before, and you wrote on there. I'm really tempted to come out there and try to PR that one. I'm like, come on.
Well, we'll be getting the course certified right at the end of December for a marathon. So if you run the 55K, you're automatically going to be put into a marathon distance that will qualify you for Boston if you run it fast enough.
That's good to know.
Yeah. So we were supposed to go qualify it this past Sunday, but it didn't work out. So we're going to go do it at the end of the month.
You got someone coming who thinks they can do that? Run at Boston during the 55K. I want to.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
There's a bunch of them.
Yeah. I mean, I qualified for Boston in my 50-miler.
Okay.
Well, I say that.
Yeah, I guess I'm forgetting about the age groups.
I did qualify, Mike, until they decided to add however many minutes
5
to
minutes.
the time this year.
Yeah.
They dropped it down for me for another, 5 minutes?
Yeah, we would have had several last year that would have qualified. I know Michael Eulich definitely would have qualified.
Michael Eulich came out and ran it like a 4:12.
Yeah.
And then he had never ran a fast marathon. He never tried. Then he goes and runs a marathon in 2:38.
Oh man.
It's like, I mean, so he ran it last year. Then Amy and Mary.
But Eureka's pretty fast. I mean, I'm sure you've ran out there.
Ran
it's pretty fast course. So.
We call it rails. That's our nickname for it. We just call it rails.
I love it. Oh yeah, I would love to see you out there, man.
Yeah,
that'd be fun. But do you have a 100-miler? So if you don't get to do Javelina, have you got another one on the radar you're thinking about?
There hasn't been one that calls for me super hard. Cruel Jewel's kind of. I'm like maybe that one's so hard. Be a really different experience. But other than that, yeah, I'm not quite sure yet. Definitely need to do a Western States qualifier of some kind now that I got a ticket in there. So.
Oh yeah, well you definitely you'll have to find one of those that are definitely a qualifier.
Yeah.
I don't know. Cruel Jewel isn't it?
It's probably. It's also a hard rock qualifier, which is unique.
Yeah, I think it's both. You're right.
Yeah.
You are right. Yeah. Well, that might be a good one for you.
I guess we all need to do that one.
I think that'd be kind of cool. Yeah, we're gonna have to see we're gonna have to stalk Mike's ultra sign up and see what he signs up for.
Well, I think. Are you going back? I think Leah just got into a 100-miler in July.
She put in the lottery. Oh, she's doing Kodiak 100 in October. And she's in the lottery for Cascade Crest.
That's what I saw. Yeah. Okay. So she's in the lottery for it.
And it's like I think it's like a 40% chance. So there's a pretty good chance she gets in, but not Western States lottery kind of thing.
So, Mike, I got to ask you one question that's not races, but. Where do you do when you're doing your training? Do you try to go to the national forest most of the time just because you enjoy it, or is it just because it's close to you?
I mean, so definitely when I lived in Athens, that was out by the Hiwassee was super, super good access. I do take the team out there and run sometimes. We'll do long runs out on along the whole.
Man, I bet they love that.
Yeah, and then we, if it's hot, we get to jump in the river after real quick, which is always nice too. So we do run out there some. Now living in Chattanooga, it's a lot easier to just look out. It's just got everything I need most of the time. So we do that a lot. But also, if there's just any weekend that's open, Leah's got some scheme of going to the Smokies or going out to Telco or somewhere to do something. So we get around out there, and then we're always looking for big climbs too. So Lookout's nice, but you can only get about maybe 1,000-foot climbing before you got to turn around and go down. So some of the mountains out here, though, if you drive an hour or so, you can get at least some 2,000+ foot climbs, which is great.
Well, the good news, Mike, with us putting this race on up there in the national forest, those trails are being cleared a little bit more.
Right.
When you ever come back and you want to come run the Warriors Passage Trail, last time I was out there, clear.
Nice. Yeah, I've definitely run it in some pretty bad conditions before.
Yeah.
So, that's good.
I would imagine you've probably seen it worse than me and Matt have.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one thing you don't think about with what you guys do, putting on races, of like how that actually affects the usage of the trails and just the maintenance.
Yeah. Well, like with that being said, like after the race, people are wanting to come back and run those trails that they've never been on.
Yeah.
So, with us putting on the event there, more people are coming back here, like, during the weekends or during vacations and actually using the trails.
I love that.
Because before, like, you go and look on Strava and you're like, who's ran this? Like you, Leah, and I think Skylar.
And I took him out there. That was like that summer we came back from Broken Arrow. I was like, I got to take you guys like to this run on Telco. It's like the coolest hidden gem like you've ever seen. And so
like you look on Strava and there's nobody there. Yeah. And now it's like more people are just constantly going to there and the John Muir Trail. So
yeah, what was funny after the race, the question I was asked the most: can I run on this like any time of the year?
Right.
I'm like, yes, like, it's
the
natural forest.
Yeah, please come run, because the more people that use it, the more people maintain it.
Yeah,
it's
and
actually
the last time that
it
we
is hard
were
to
at
find.
Reliance, we saw runners running starting in Reliance. So it was kind of cool.
Several times I've been on that road, like, where's the trail? And I go past it. I'm like, oh, dang, I got to turn around.
Oh, it's like American flag. If you can find the American flag as you're climbing it, you're good. If you miss that, you're lost.
Oh yeah. Well, Mike, we're transitioning over. We've taken plenty of your time here. We're almost an hour and a half into this podcast. We will ask you some questions, but for the very first question, we ask this to everybody, and it's, why do you run? Like when everything is so hard, and just like thinking back to COVID, like, do I really want to do this? Questioning life, like, what keeps you going? Like, why do you do it?
Yeah. I mean, I think the first reason for me is it makes me feel good, like healthy and vital, like raising my vitality, just like day-to-day life. Or I think, and not just like, there's the exercise and the endorphins, and it like physically makes me healthier, but also just like having something that I do every day and some goal that I'm chasing every day just kind of reframes how I approach every day in life. And I think that's just like a huge piece of it for me, where I even just after Pinhoti, like taking some downtime after it and running a little less, like I just feel like life's a little duller, where I just like that it just adds some sharpness and color to life for me, for sure. I think that would be the biggest reason. And then stacked on top of that, it's just really fun for me to kind of engineer with it and try and see what I get out of it. Just that piece of it too.
I've never asked anybody this question, but I feel like you're the perfect one to ask, just because of like how your story started. How would 5th grade Michael, who started riding mountain bikes and just started like doing cross country and track, like how was that? Why? Like, what really drew you then?
That's a great question. I mean, there's just some need that I think all of us within ultra running feel, that we just have to challenge ourselves. Otherwise we feel like we're, I don't know, kind of letting ourselves go, or just letting go of like chasing our dreams or whatever it is. It's like a way to just kind of get ourselves in that mindset of just, I want to do the best I can each day and be the best I can each day. And that does bleed over to other areas of life, where, if you take what you put into running, and then you have the tools to put that into other things too.
Oh yeah. Nope. Great answer. All right, Matt. Well, we were going to turn it over to you, sir.
We have a few questions here. First one is
Just
about
full
Pinhoti.
disclosure, Mike. We don't know what these questions are.
No, these aren't bad. These are pretty good.
They're not too bad?
No,
Well,
this is
good.
This is from the, I guess, asking about Pinhoti. Is there any section of that race that was just terrible?
I mean, I alluded to the end was at the end, like you go on like this long road for a while, which is fine. You're like 6 miles on a long road, and then you get to the last aid station, and then you're just kind of like winding on these mountain bike trails, and it was dark at this time, and like the finish is close, but you have no idea like how close. You're like it's supposed to be 3 miles, but like this is the experience I've had at almost every ultra where I'm gone for broke, and the end is like I'm ready for the end to come now. But this one was particularly bad because you just can't see the finish or have any idea where it is. So like it's just gonna pop out of the woods at some point, but then like you don't know when it's gonna be. So it finally even when it finally came, and it was like I don't know, you saw the finish at Packet Pickup. There's like 20 meters from the finish line to the trail, like the single track in the woods. So like even popping out of the woods, it was like I had like 2 seconds to realize like the finish line is actually here. They barely soak it in. So I think that part could be cooler if you had like a longer view of it where you're like, all right, I've done it now. Because it was like I still didn't believe I'd done it even till like after I had already done it.
Yeah, that is one of those that sneaks up on you, like when you pop out of the trail and there's the finish line. It's like
the next one is about gels. Do you prefer a berry flavored gel or a lemon flavored gel?
Oh, this must be somebody that knows you.
This has got to be Skylar. Is this Skylar? He's saying next to the 2 Victus gels I had, they were either berry flavor or lemon flavor. And the lemon flavor is the OG, and I definitely like that one better. The berry is fine. Good to change up the palate a little bit, but I really like that lemon one for whatever reason.
I don't like the lemon goo gel.
No, like lemon normally wouldn't be my thing. Like when I got that, but it came in like that gel came in like one of those trial packs where you get like a bunch of like 10 random gels, and I'm like, lemon, like this isn't gonna be no good. And then I ended up really liking it.
Do you think we could talk ham and goodies into making a lemon gel?
I wouldn't eat it. I don't like ham and goodies, lemon cookies.
I love them, man. They're the Matt. We're no longer friends.
Don't lie. Give me the snickerdoodles and we can talk.
Geez.
Speaking of more hydration stuff, what hydration do you prefer?
So day to day, I've been using the Precision tabs. They're like it's kind of like a noon tablet. They have different like saltinesses. They have like a 250, a 500, and a 750, I guess, per tab. And so I just drop one of those in my water every morning to get that would be 500 of sodium. And then during races for Pinhoti, I cycled between Scratch High Carb, which actually has a good amount of sodium in it, and then this other brand that's like a budget cycling brand drink mix. It's called Formula 369, and it's
I've not even heard of that.
And it's got a good amount of sodium in it too. So that's kind of what I use for those. I think the product, if you need to try something, try those precision tabs. You can like drop them in there. It's almost like a little orange soda. It's pretty good. A little bit fizzy. And then you can add those to other drink mixes too. And then it's an easy way to add sodium.
That's nice. Yeah.
Cool. My last question here. During aid stations, would you prefer something sweet or salty?
Man, I'll go salty. Usually that salty stuff is not what I carry on me. So good to get like some chips or something like that, or even a pickle. Sometimes I'll grab a pickle from an aid station.
Yeah, the goos are enough sugar as it is. So I'm with you there. Like get something salty, a pretzel or something at the aid station. But
No pickles for me.
No pickles?
No, I'll be throwing up.
Yep. I can't do the pickled juice. I don't care about
pickles.
No
pickled
juice. But I can eat pickles.
No pickles.
I guess pickles don't bother you at all, Mark.
They're growing on me. Yeah.
What do you think? So I have one question for you. I might have two. Who knows? What do you think? Like since you've started your ultra running journey, what do you think has been the one thing that's helped you the most that you figured out?
I think the most helpful thing coming in was that I came in with speed from college, cross country, and I think it's helped me to do what I can to maintain that reasonably. You know, like I can't quite run what I did back then, but like always kind of being in touch with that and in touch with that, like being an athlete, I guess, viewing myself as an athlete more than just like I love to adventure and go do those long runs in the national forest, but also like being an athlete is kind of what gives me that baseline to grow and do that faster.
Yeah, good answer. Good. Well, Matt, do you have any last questions for Mike?
I don't.
Mike, do you have any questions for us?
Tell me about podcasting. What have you guys learned there? What's the key to doing that successfully?
That I'm not technically savvy. I know that part.
Is it worth the work?
I mean, worth it for us. Yeah. Like we enjoy it.
Yeah.
So I guess we've been doing it for about 1.5 years now. It has been a definite learning curve because I've basically done all this just through learning.
Mm-hmm.
I've Googled everything, looked everything up, didn't ask for any help. I mean, hell, I even built the table that we're at. Like, that's the thing. It's like foamed all the room, finding right software, microphones, etc. It's definitely been a learning curve, but I would say the learning curve has been more of the technical side as far as during the recording, because we've had issues during recordings where we've had to actually go back and ask the guest to re-record. Mm-hmm. Now, we've not done that in a long time, and I hope that we don't do that because now I think we've figured out most of the issues, but that's definitely been a learning curve. But as far as the rest, it's been really fun. We get to learn everybody's stories. By no means did we expect the podcast to be successful at all. Like it was just one of those things where me and Matt and Mike were like, we're going to do it. Then me and Matt just kind of started it. And, I was telling Matt the other day, which we've not even shared this on social media, but like we're top 5% of Spotify for videos watched, which is kind of cool. Like didn't even think that was a thing. So kind of cool. But I mean, it's been one of those where we've just kind of learned and we've had fun with it. When we first started out, we didn't know the direction, but now we're kind of like, recording every week and being consistent about it. And I will say it's a lot of work, like we record on Wednesdays. I edit Thursday and Friday, trying to get the podcast released sometime on Friday so that people can listen to it on Saturdays, because runners want a podcast on Sunday. Saturday. I've definitely learned that. Like the podcast needs to be ready Saturday morning. And sometimes I miss that on occasion. Like I missed it the weekend of Pinhoti. I was trying to edit it Friday night. I don't think I got it done. I was like, it's time to go to bed. It's like 10 or 11. I'm done.
Yeah.
But, that part's definitely been a learning curve. But I think for the most part, we tag team some stuff. And if I'm running late, Matt's at least tech savvy enough now to come and get the podcast started before I walk in. But we are making progress. Matt was even the one that found this cool little lot.
Yeah, got that customized for us.
Yeah, I feel like it's like a good addition to your race directing business and everything.
Yes.
Kind of as me and Leah are growing our coaching, and she's got quite a few people now. And it's like that's kind of the next step is like add a community aspect to that. And I think podcast.
Yeah, absolutely.
Something on the radar.
Yeah, if you ever have any questions, just reach out. I'll be glad to help. Oh, we've helped a few others already. Anything else?
I think that's it.
Well, Mike, man, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast and sharing your story, and most importantly, taking almost 1.5 hours, 2 hours out of your evening to share with us. But it's been really cool getting to learn your story and just know a little bit more about you. And obviously, we've learned about Leah. Put just a little plug in here for you for like if people want to reach out to you for coaching, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, our website is woodlandcreaturesendurance.com. There's a way to email us on the website, or you can also go to our Instagram. It's linked in both our profiles. You can reach out to us on Instagram as well.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, we wish you the best. We'll have both you guys on here sometime Q1, hopefully get you on here and do a little coaching session and let some of the listeners ask you coaching questions. I think that'd be fun. We need to try to start doing that like quarterly.
Yeah.
And we'd like to have more coaches on here. We're going to try to do one for race directors here soon too. We think that'd be kind of fun.
Mm-hmm.
But man, thank you so much for sharing your story. It's been fun, and we can't wait to see what you do next.
Absolutely.
Thank you, guys.
Mike, take care, man. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks,
You
Mike.
too. See you out on the trails.
Oh, yeah.